I quit. With Destiny, I killed Raz.
J-Dub makes a solid point, though. Double, J-Dub makes a solid point. He says if you don't die, then you can't get killed during spawn.
Hey!
Ooh.
Yeah. Oh, okay, okay. See
Alright.
how it is, Bones. Shit.
I'm running new gun. Go easy on me. Just make sure you go easy. See the name Tony? Just means go easy. Alright, Raz, you're not on me. Ah, that thing's so slow.
What were you using?
Jade Rabbit.
Oh.
All right, we're up and running.
No.
That's cool.
That was not hella nice.
I'm sorry.
I have to give it a little look-see, see whether or not it's actually running right.
Turn around. That thing is hard to see through.
But we should be up and good.
Whoa, controller, what you doing, man? You started drifting. Don't like to see that.
Oh, are you serious?
Oh, thank you, Dad.
That was not hella cool. Oh!
Hey, double. Oh, somebody stole my shit. It was Raz.
I am using.
Get out of here, Raz.
Not
I'm
every guy
using-
again.
I'm done with Jade Rabbit. I'm using my baby since year 1.
Wow.
Damn it. Here.
Alrighty. My controller doesn't want to shoot. That's.
Always a good time.
I got everything I can that burns on Pepper Dragon.
Oh god. Oh man, they were everywhere.
Hey.
All right.
Oh, nice. Haha.
Cool.
Giving this a little look-see. Looks like my bit rate is a little weird. Hey Raz, how we doing?
Shoot at him.
Close on my body.
Yo, 5 viewers. Is that for real or is that lying to me?
Oh my god.
It
my
likes to
controller,
lie.
what's going on? Oh no.
Uh-oh.
Switched to another controller.
Hey,
It's just
come back.
going all over the place.
Hey, come back.
Nope, fuck that noise.
Hell, hit me with a nail.
Yo,
Sit still, Kira.
got Raznark in here.
You hunters.
I am.
Ah, come on.
How does this stream look? Does it look okay right now, Raz? I'm still trying to mess with OBS and I am no good at it. No good at it.
Burn, double burn.
What are you doing, Jug? Look at that.
Oh, Jesus. And not a friend.
Everyone. Walls running.
Yo, that is dirty.
Ah, what the hell?
Oh.
Jug.
Announcing the Jug after you get a kill.
Well, he said, what the
Oh,
hell?
that goes.
So I explained. It was Jug.
Alright.
Terrifying.
Yeah, that was fucking dope.
Yes, no, maybe? Well, it doesn't look too bad. We're gonna say that that's good enough. We're not getting drop frames, it's doing the things. It's good enough. So we're just watching some of our stupid Rumble night while we wait for 6:30 to actually. Oh, it is actually 6:30 now. But while we wait for maybe a couple more people to show up in the next couple of minutes. Hope y'all don't mind watching some of this old footage. It's pretty funny stuff. There's definitely.
Oh, I'm out of grenade. Ah.
Yeah, that was a great one to look at.
Oh,
Watching it from the other side.
Oh no, get out of here.
Raz with his thorn. Coming in strong.
Oh god. It'll be fine. Alright, oh my
No,
God,
that was a perfect move.
Burn, burn.
You're up. Ah, no,
I
he's
got
still
a
suppressed.
sword, I got a crossfire.
Oh man. So Raz, how you doing tonight?
Later, Double.
Oh no, Tony, don't know.
Mic is a little soft. I should probably just talk a little louder, but we'll take a look in the settings real quick.
Alex, Alex,
Is it still soft or is it too loud? Still alive is good. Still alive is good.
Oh, Double.
Fuck you.
I wasn't weak.
Okay.
All right. Well, we are going to go ahead and get started so that this doesn't run too terrible long. So, this is Zen Moments, episode 2. I'm Wall Savvy. You all know me because, you play games with me all the time. And this is a show where I will go through and take videos that were submitted to the Crucible Training League page, and I will break them down and try to give useful feedback to people to help them give feedback to people to try to help them learn how to better analyze their own gameplay, as well as sometimes you just need people to look at your gameplay. You see yourself play all the time. Watching back your gameplay is a super powerful thing that you definitely should do. But one thing is sometimes people have a hard time seeing little habits, little things that they do in their gameplay. And so what we try to do with Crucible or with Zen Moments is, get that third party perspective, get that somebody else's eyes on it, and help you find maybe 3 or 4 things that you could work on in your next Crucible matches that could significantly improve your gameplay. We have a bunch of submissions to get through. I'm not going to try to do them all tonight. Tonight we're going to be doing 2 videos by Tiger, 1 video by J-Dub, and 1 video by Kaloth. So the footage that's going in the background right now is just my perspective from a Rumble night that we had a little while back, and we're actually going to see a couple of videos from that night from Tiger. And yeah, without further ado, I think we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. So this seems like the best place to start doing it. I'm just going to put up this starting now. Also, yeah, there was some salty double in that for sure. Raz, just to elaborate on that. All right, so this first one here is a video that was submitted by Tiger, and this was from the Rumble night. So in this first one, I believe he's using a Clever Dragon and a shotgun, no, a sniper rifle. So I'll probably be pausing the video throughout as I need to say things. So the start of this Rumble, because it's on Vertigo and Vertigo's not a normal Rumble map, this spawn is very close. You immediately come into me here. And one thing I want to point out right off the bat here is that you actually see me jump up fairly early on in this engagement, but notice that as you start to move your crosshair over to me, it takes you a pretty long time because you weren't centered on me before you ADS'd in. It took a pretty long time for you to actually move the crosshair over to me. So that's one thing that you're going to want to, try to do is, it's called pre-aiming, and the idea is just that when you ADS in, you want to make sure that you're already over top of the target. When you have to make that correction after you ADS, it's going to take you longer to get that target acquisition. And we're going to talk about your clever dragon in general throughout this whole video. I think one of the things that I definitely noticed in your gameplay is that the clever dragon seems like it might be actually just a little bit fast for you. In that particular engagement with Raz there, clever dragon, since you're using a sniper, may not have been the greatest thing to use, but the big thing there was just you making sure that you're using your correct weapons at the correct distances. So one of the things with fast firing pulses is you've got to have you get a little bit more leniency on it, where you can get an extra burst in. But one of the things that it lacks is that from distance accuracy. You don't get all 3 shots to the head from a distance with a pulse rifle like the Clever Dragon. So one thing that you might try just as we're watching through these clips and just think about is like, try a Hawksaw variety again. Maybe it's been a long time since you've tried it, but that particular variety has a very similar time to kill in its normal time to kill. But the thing that you got to remember is that you get more leniency. Like, you're more often to get that time to kill, especially at distance with a slower firing pulse. So in this engagement, we're going to back it up and look at this engagement here. You got a really good jump on double here. You got the first shot off and you melted him down, but you're weak here. You're already red when you see me. This is one thing that we're going to talk about multiple times throughout your gameplay is if you're weak, you need to run. Learn when to disengage. You don't want to get stuck in these situations where you're already weak and then you're coming into a gunfight with somebody that's at full health, because the odds of you winning without using any sort of equipment is very slim chance. So, for me in this engagement, you're already weak. All I have to do is come up and put 1-2 shots in you. It's an easy cleanup for me. One thing on this first match, it really seemed like to me that you were uncomfortable with your secondary, that you weren't super comfortable with sniper, and maybe you were just trying to play around with it, and that's totally fine. But actually getting a good mix of your primary and your secondary game so that you're using all of the things at your disposal. You're using your melee and your grenade often. So this is an interesting spot here. So I wanted to take this chance to talk about playing to the playlist you're in. So one of the things that's going on in this clip is that we're playing Rumble, and you can see down at the bottom the scoreboard right now isn't that far away. It's 320 to 110. But you're going to notice that as we keep going here, you just see the score pulling further and further away. And one of the things is that Rumble is just a playlist that you have to be very aggressive in. If you're not being aggressive in Rumble, you're going to see the score just run away and just slide further and further out of the grasp of being able to catch up. And one of the things is that you have a lot of moments in your gameplay here where you're being not campy, but you're being very deliberate. You're sitting in a place, just kind of watching angles. And so in this instance, you sit up here for a solid 10, 15 seconds. You see somebody, but you're not able to get a shot off on them. And so then you just stay here and wait. And Raz sneaks up behind you and gets a hit on you. So that's one of those instances where you camped for a while and then you didn't even get any payout out of it, and that you don't want to have that happen. So with Rumble, you want to make sure that you're always kind of moving and you're getting a good rotation on. So one of the things that you're going to notice in your gameplay as well is that you don't actually use a lot of side-to-side movement while you're shooting. I think we get one here where you're walking straight towards him, and that's why he's able to get that fusion burst on you so easily, especially even while he was in the air. That grenade was pretty funny. You definitely got the jump on him while he was while he wasn't watching. So a big part of the gameplay here that we really are looking at is, you have a lot of very forward-backward movement. You definitely want to work in more strafing. And this is going to be true of all the gameplay that we watched tonight. You're going to notice that everybody needs to do better at strafing. I need to do better at strafing. Strafing is just one of those things that's harder to do on a controller than it is on a keyboard. And it's just something that everybody needs to work on. But speaking of that trip mine kill, I did want to mention real quick that a lot of your trip mines, that one being kind of excluded, your trip mines are used very offensively instead of defensively. And so since they don't stick anymore, it's much harder to use a trip mine in an aggressive manner. It seems like you're a fan of offensive grenades, so it might be worth looking into the other two grenades in the gunslinger tree. You've got my personal favorites, incendiaries, because they have such a big explosion area, and their blast radius is huge, and the burn effect is amazing. And they're just much better grenades for being able to pre-nade corners and stuff. You can't really pre-nade with a trip mine. It's a very defensive grenade. So it's something to think about. Trip mines can be really good for Rumble because you can close off areas behind you. But they're just not as good as they used to be. I personally prefer to have that the ability to get the strong lead in, as opposed to cutting off people behind me. So that's something to keep in mind just for your loadout. So yeah, again, another note here that I've got is when you're absolute, which just means close to death, you're not running away. When you're weak, you need to run. You're in a situation right here where you had an advantage, but scoping in, he's way close to be trying to snipe. And, at this point you're weak, and he just jumps up over there and gets a shotgun on you. That was a bit of a rough play. I think that, basically you either needed to commit to jumping over to meet him and, get him in close quarters because he still had his primary out at that point, or you needed to commit to running back to have a better angle with your sniper. So as you're moving around the stage here, I feel like your movement just feels a little... Oh, this is a great snipe. That was good target acquisition. Good job. Just popped Raz's head. But your movement feels a little stiff. And part of it is like you're not sprinting as much as you could be. And you need to incorporate sliding into your movement a lot more. So one thing that a lot of people don't use as much as they should is when they're moving around the map, you should be moving cover to cover. And what that means is that you should always be moving to a place where at any moment you could pop behind a piece of cover. So you want to move from one corner to another corner, basically. You don't never want to move through the middle of a lane, because when you're in the middle of a lane, you're basically just... You have no protection for if somebody gets the jump on you. You're pretty much done at that point. So always think cover to cover. Always, be moving as you're moving around the map. You want to slide into cover, and slide even around corners and whatnot. If you see somebody on your radar, what that's going to do is it's going to help you to be able to move around and not be as exposed, not always be at head level for people. It oftentimes throws them off just long enough for you to win a gunfight. So just something to think about. So we've got a defensive super here to claim the heavy, and popping early like that is great because you often get the jump on people like you do here in a second. But here's the thing to keep in mind, and this is just a little pro tip here. If you use a super to get, especially a super like Golden Gun, where you can basically guarantee yourself 3 kills with a Golden Gun in Rumble, if you use a super to claim heavy, you've got to make the most of that heavy. Like, that heavy needs to get you at least 3 kills if you're not using your Golden Gun to get 3 kills. Otherwise, it's easier to get kills with a Golden Gun than it is to get kills with heavy. So here you'll get 1 kill, your Golden Gun runs out, you get the heavy, and then you get killed with your heavy. And to me, you know, if I was running Gunslinger, generally speaking, I'm not going to camp the heavy. I'm actually just going to move around and try to kill whoever gets the heavy, because I can then keep moving to try to get the other person who got heavy as well if I'm lucky. So it's just something to think about. Defensive supers are way better in like 6s, where you're shutting down a lot of people getting a heavy, but in Rumble only 2 people can get it. So again, play to your playlist. Just think about those sorts of things when you're making these decisions. So you definitely pop double. That was pretty funny. But yeah, you get the heavy here, and your super runs out, and then you get pushed. And, you know, that was just unfortunate. And Raz had a super, and he did basically what I just told you. You know, he used it to shut down the heavy rather than to guard the heavy to get it himself. So you can see here, Double's at an advantageous position, right? He's got the corner cover, and you're out in the open without having any cover to get behind. So again, just make sure that you're making you're making smart plays cover to cover. Like that one, if you needed to, you could have dipped behind that side. Here, you're dipping behind, you know, an angle so that you have an angle on Kira, but you were weak and you still engaged. With being that weak from that grenade, it would have been better to just run, just bug out, get out of there. So this match, you know, this is where Raz gets DC'd, which is unfortunate. But you can see here that the score is very much pulled away from you during this match. That, you know, it's 1900 to 700, and a part of that is just that you're just not being very aggressive in trying to go out and get those kills. Rumble is all about rotation. You either rotate or you hold down a very high traffic area. Those are your 2 options. And so, you know, right here, I think the score's gone 200 points away now, and then it might even get 1 more before. Yep. So now it's 300 points away, and you hadn't really moved too much in that time period. So it's just something to think about. So one of the things that, you know, to work on as a hunter, because hunters are fast, and part of it is making quick approaches. So if you take too long to make an approach, you risk people noticing you on the radar. And so a big part of it is, making sure that you're moving fast enough that people don't see you on the radar until it's too late. A lot of instances, you're moving kind of slowly and kind of calculating where folks are based on your radar, but making snappier choices and just, going for it can dramatically increase your points in a game mode like this. And then that was unfortunate. Again, you spawned right where I was, so there's nothing you can do about that. So yeah, that was your first match. It's not a bad match. I think that you did a good job in here, and It was a great one to show because it allowed me to kind of go through a lot of the little things there that might help your gameplay. So the next one, I've pretty much gone through most of my notes. So we're gonna watch the next one, and I'll just kind of commentate specific things as they come up. So this is Tiger's second clip here. And then this one, he is using a sidearm instead of using a pulse rifle. And honestly, I think sidearm is a really good choice for you. Just your general play style. Sidearm is a good choice. It has, it has the good close up. It has a good enough mid range. And then I think, even if you switch to a slower firing pulse like a Hawksaw, that having that extended range, like you'd be good at pretty much every range at that point. So you jump up here, you've got the good pre-aim. So like I was talking in the last one, that pre-aim was solid. The reason that you won that gunfight was because you were already locked in on his skull when you aimed in. So here you're aiming at my feet, and I just happened to be able to get a full burst in on you. So one thing to think about there is when you're walking around, you always want to be aimed at head level. In general, people tend to aim a little bit low when they're just walking around. See here, you're looking at the floor. When you're looking at the floor like that, then when you aim in, you're not going to be at their head. So pre-aiming is something that you could definitely give a little work to. And one of the things with sidearms, when you know somebody's coming, pre-aiming with a sidearm is super strong when you know somebody's about to come around a corner. Because as soon as they do, you can just immediately start throwing. You can immediately start shooting shots into their head. You get that little bit of extra time, and with a sidearm, every second counts. That last one was just the goofiest exchange I think we had of probably the whole night. There you thought you had him. You just aimed slightly to the left. I think he double must have got you with a high caliber round, and you ended up getting the trade. So one thing that I noticed is that you just right now your stuff is on cooldown, but I don't feel like you're using your equipment as often as you could. As you're watching this footage, like really sort of look at how often your stuff is actually cooled down. It's more often than it should be. I mean, you should really be using your gear as often as you can. That was a great strafe to make those miss, by the way. You can see the power of strafing against a fusion rifle right there. It is so hard to hit bolts on a fusion rifle if somebody's actually legit strafing. Again, you get the drop on double. Great little cleanup there. But one of the things that I notice is that you're pretty much per game you're using one gun. So this is something to think about too. You're pretty much sticking to whatever is working for you at that moment, which is fine, and you're staying at engagement distances that is totally fine to use a sidearm in. But you've got stuff cooled down right here. You could have laid a trap. You get a little bit of a tag there with a trap. Actually, you did exactly what I was saying to do. So, good pre-nade there. You should put it just a little bit closer to you so that he would have to shoot through that vortex. He'd have to try to find you through that vortex, or you should have run away since you were weak. It was going to be a hard battle to win. Again, here, he's totally in pulse rifle distance, but you have to work really hard to get him with that sidearm. Here, this is a good sidearm distance. You still managed to get the kill. I meant pulse rifle distance. You just want to make sure that you're always using the proper tool for the distance that you're at. You get the tether off here. You get a kill with the sidearm. And honestly, things are going good in this match. You're still up in second place. And you can tell that your points are so much closer. So look how much more in this map you're moving around the map. You're rotating all the time. You're making sure that you're always kind of getting around and finding people. And that's part of what makes you win at Rumble. So one thing I wanted to note is that through both of these games, I assume you're using Shade Step. Maybe you're using Keen Scout. If you're using Keen Scout, why aren't you using Shade Step? And the big thing there is like so many of these situations where people get in close, using Shade Step to reorient yourself to where they are when they get the drop on you can just save your life so often. If you have Shade Step on, you're just forgetting to use it, and you need to be a little bit better about making sure that you use it. And if you don't, which you either have something that's giving you Keen Scout, or you have Keen Scout on because you have the smaller wedges of pie. Keen Scout's great. You can do the same thing with the Gellions, and I highly suggest it. And then you still get to use Shade Step. So that's my suggestion there. And again, we've got another situation here where you're rotating around the outside here. You're trying to find people, but you need to be in it. You need to be a lot closer and rotating and just trying to find people all the time. Because in Rumble, like, that's the only way that you can keep yourself up at the top, is just constantly rotating and forcing people to engage with you. Again, you're doing really well with the sidearm. I think a sidearm is a great secondary for you, but a big part of the stuff that you need to work on is just making sure you're using everything at your disposal all the time. Don't leave stuff cooled down. Don't only use a single thing. You really want to make sure that you're always being, diverse in what you're using. You're always aiming around these corners. You saw him around the corner. You could have beat him if you would have used, your grenade to throw right where you saw him. Wait for him to take a few ticks of damage and then move in. You could have won that fight against Heavy, and that would have been a really great win. But as it turned out, he escaped with a sliver. So a lot of it's just making sure that you're positioning yourself well, and that you're really using all the tools at your disposal. These subclasses, especially with Night Stalker. Night Stalker is so neutral game heavy, which neutral game just means everything that happens between your supers. Some subclasses are so dependent on their super game that people say they have a weak neutral game. Stormcaller or Night Stalker is very dependent on their neutral game. So making sure that you're really using that and using that to your advantage is really gonna do wonders for you. So we're gonna do a little postmortem breakdown now for you, and these are going to be your top 4 things that you should work on, that you should take away from this whole thing. This is the too long didn't read, so if the half-hour synopsis is too much, here's your top 4. Number 1, work on your movement. You need to strafe more, you need to move cover to cover, and you need to sprint whenever you can. Like, you should always be sprinting. You really shouldn't walk anywhere in this game for the most part. When you're using a sidearm, you should be shooting from the air, and the one thing that you could start doing that would make the most difference, probably, start sliding. Start putting sliding into your normal gameplay. It's going to make a huge difference. The number 2 thing you need to do: nail down a loadout and use it in your correct engagement distances. So, a slower pulse archetype, perhaps. If you really like your Clever Dragon, that's fine, man. I'm not telling you how to play your game. But that'll give you that mid to long range, and the sidearm gives you that close to mid range. And so you can choose what you're using in the mid range and use the correct thing at the other ranges. You know, and that's gonna do a lot of good for you. You know, if you're using sidearms, keep your primary on until you know you're going to be at a distance where you're going to use a sidearm. Running around with a sidearm out all the time, contrary to what Double says, could be detrimental to your health. Whereas they have such a high equip speed that if you see somebody suddenly get closer on your radar to where you know that you can engage with them at that distance, that's really when you should pull it out and get ready to use it. The number 3 thing is going to be run away. You know, if you're losing a fight, just bug out. Just get out of there, man. Like the most powerful thing that you can do to increase your KD in this game is learn how to run away. You know, staying alive is the best way to make your KD better. And the last thing, number 4 thing to work on, is just speed up your reaction speed in general. Don't let your brain get in the way. Just react and see what happens. Like, this is the thing. You just got to try it. You just need to, a couple of times when you think that you might mess it up, just do it and see what happens. Worst case scenario, you lose that engagement. You might have anyway. It may lower your KD for just a little bit, but eventually you'll learn to make better decisions in that super fast gut reaction, muscle memory mode. So those are your 4 things. Hopefully this is helpful to you, and thank you for submitting to Zen Moments. So next we're going to move on over to Mr. J-Dub. He submitted a control match. And we've got, this is going to be a lot of fun. Also, Double, welcome to the stream. Thanks for coming in. Sorry that we had to do this a little bit early. I feel bad about it. Do we have anybody else in here? It says I have 4 viewers, but I don't know if that's actually true. Oh, we got Kaloth in here. That's cool. Actually, since Kaloth is here, I'm going to go ahead and do his real quick so that he can actually see his live if he wants to. Feel free to, talk in the chat if you want to. I'll try to respond like as I'm doing this stuff. But we'll go ahead and do Kaloth's here real quick. This is, I believe, also a control match, if I remember right, on Bannerfall. So Kaloth loves his Stormcaller, and he does real well with it. He's got that super down. One thing that, you've got the arc bolts up here, and the big thing is just use all of your tools when you have it. So here's a situation. You see that he's gotten close on your radar. We can see it right there. And here's the issue. You know he's there, and instead of, he knows, he can see on his radar that you're at that same altitude level. So he knows exactly where you are. You're in the doorway. If you would have thrown your grenade right here to tag him up, now he has to make a decision. Does he push out weak, or does he fall back? If he falls back, you're able to take B. And if he pushes out, you're able to clean him up much easier. So what ends up happening is you don't pre-nade, and he has all the time in the world to sneak around the corner and get the shots on you, while it's harder for you to hit his head. So a pre-nade in that instance would have saved it. By throwing the grenade first to get a tag on him, he would have had to make a decision. Make sure as you're shooting, you're always strafing side to side. So right here, you're just kind of standing in the doorway. You're not doing too much movement, but he didn't have a lock on you, so it worked out just fine. Even when you're on a control point, you should always be moving left and right. It helps so that people just can't really get a lock on you. So one of the things right there, you actually moved in that clip back to the exact same spot where you just died from, and you're going to see that several times throughout this gameplay, that as you move to a place, you then end up getting you go back, like when you die, you end up going back to the exact same spot. And it's okay to go back to try to clean that guy up. Try to do it from a different angle. Like go up over the arch instead of going through the door. That way you're not becoming predictable and people don't expect to see you in a certain spot. So one of the things that I found interesting in your video, which it was a great, you came up on that guy, surprised him, got all your shots landed. That was great. One of the things I notice here is that you actually are aiming too high with the grasp. So if you watch here, you actually miss shots off the top of his head. So you're aiming high enough that instead of it pulling from his chest into his head, it's going off the top of his head. So as you're firing, and that one was pretty okay. There's one we'll see in here where you lose the gunfight here real soon, where the shots actually just go over the top of his head. And it happens multiple times throughout this footage, so just make sure you're looking out for that, and that you're aware that when you're shooting a fast-firing pulse like this, it's more important to hit all your shots than to hit all your shots as crits, because you're still going to get that stagger. And one thing to keep in mind, when you're getting the first shot on somebody with your grasp, you're winning your gunfight almost every time. If you get hit first, it's like a 50-50. Okay, so I'm going to finish that thought, then we're going to go back and look at that little play. There's 3 things that can help you win those gunfights easier. One is, if you take shots first, just don't engage. So if you get shot first, go and get your health back and try again from a different angle. It lets you re-engage on your terms, and you're going to get a better KD because of it. Learn the trick. Another thing is to learn the tricks to managing stagger, which a part of that is just aiming low so that you don't go over people's heads. And the last part is pre-nading. If you see somebody, throw a grenade, move to cover, wait for the grenade to hit, then pop out and clean up. That's for when you know you're going to be engaged, when you know it's going to happen. That grenade tag is going to help you win. So let's jump back and take a look at this little shotgun move again. So you see this guy jumping up over top, and you're coming up to meet him, but you're coming up to meet him at very low health. In this particular instance, if I saw that guy jumping up, I would have tried to run around the front of the Mohawk. But you come up to meet him, and I think you could have beat him if you would have shotgun melee'd. But I think maybe he might have shot you just enough time. But I mean, he could have shot you from even when you started jumping towards him with a shotgun, and you would have probably taken enough damage to die. And in those instances, it's always better to disengage. So one other thing I want to talk about is, in general, your movement feels just a little bit on the slow side. Warlocks are inherently slow. Just they're friggin' slow. Like, everybody knows that. They're floofy and they're slow and whatever. But a big part of it, of getting warlocks to work really well, is to get that flow of movement where you're jumping, you're floofing, you're sliding. It's all just kind of one kind of wave that you're going through. And so you need to work on sliding. You need to work on making sure that your movement is continuing to flow. Move cover to cover. And a big thing is just jumping techniques. So right now you're jumping, and a lot of your jumps are very lofty, very floofy. Make sure that you're letting off of that jump. Tap it again to come out of the jump if you don't need to go that high. Use warlock skating, which is like the poor man's version of Titan skating, where as you start to fall, you tap your control burst, and you'll get or focus burst, and you'll get a little bit of speed. And if you keep bouncing off the ground like you do with Titan skating, you actually can get going pretty fast. The big thing is it's faster than normally running around, so it's worth it to do it. It keeps you not moving at head level, and it's a good technique to get into doing when you're just running around. So now we're getting into your super usage. Your super usage is on point. You don't, right here, you're obviously not using Ionic Blink. So I like Ionic Blink because in instances like this, you can get in without them being able to get quite so much damage on you. Like, you just about died there, but you made it work. One thing is, you don't use the rest of your subclass to its full potential. You don't really use your shotgun melee combo very often, and that's such a powerful combo. I mean, it's stronger than the super. It's ridiculous to say, but it's true. And so make sure that you're really taking advantage of that melee. It's gonna save you so much. So you're gonna a lot of things that I saw in here was like slowly double peeking things, where you double peek around a corner. And sometimes you come out with a win, but it's a lot better to always rotate to a different vantage point and try to re-engage after you get your health back. Also, remember you have a secondary. This is another thing, kind of like I was talking about with Tiger. You've got a secondary, but you just don't use it very often. When it comes to killing a Stormcaller like that, the only way you could have beat that guy would have been if you would have, jumped, shot him with the shotgun, and meleeed, and hoped for the best, and like prayed to whatever god you pray to. Because like Stormcallers are strong. When he was so close to you, you probably couldn't have ran. But by jumping when you use your shotgun, even if you have low stability on there, it's not going to throw your aim up so high that a melee won't hit. So keep that in mind. Whenever you're trying to take down a super, it's with a shotgun, it's almost better to jump. It helps you get more pellets into their head, and that's pretty much what you need in order to take down a super. So that was just a super shitty spawn right there. You friggin' spawn in, and this is one thing that actually I did want to talk about is when you're playing on Bannerfall control, you're just kind of pushing back and forth between the two sides, and that's fine for generating kills. But what that does is it flips the spawns. It's a very symmetrical map, and so if you push too far, you will flip the spawns. And so here, your team flipped the spawn on you, and so when you spawn, guess what? They're still over on the other side. This is the best places that it could put you, is right next to somebody else. So try not to push past your mid-map point. It's going to be in your best interest, because as soon as you start capping the one on the other side, they're going to start capping the one that you just came from. It's better to just hold down one side really strong and keep B than it is to keep flipping the spawn back and forth, unless you're trying to like get them off of B for some reason, and then that's still risky. So we're moving in here. You see the grenade come in. You're tagged. At this point, you should really be moving for some cover. You do end up coming to this hall, which is good. See the golden gun there. I mean, best you could have done was sprint, slide, and try to get under his golden gun to get a shotgun shot off. So coming up here in a couple of seconds, you're going to have a moment where you break line of sight. And you do a really good job of breaking line of sight. And it's really an example of what I'm talking about when I say that you should disengage and try again from an advantageous position. Because you'll see how it ends up benefiting you here. You got so close to getting owned. That was so close. So you get a good little tear here with your heavy, which is great. And this right here would have been a perfect place where you could have thrown a grenade to pre-nade that guy. That's what he did. And, luckily you're able to clean up on it. Now you're out, and you're so tagged up, and you break line of sight to come in here, and then you're able to get that cleanup kill. If you hadn't a broken line of sight and disengaged to put the thing on your terms, you would have been shotgunned for sure. So now you're moving back, and because you've crossed mid-map again, it's likely the spawn is gonna flip. That's just an unfortunate thing there. If you ever hear a blade dancer swinging behind you, you can either jump straight up in the air and hope that their tracking doesn't make them move high enough to hit you, or you can just run. And in that situation, if you with the red on your screen, I would have just ran. So you got another great instance of Stormcaller here. You get lots of kills with it. So one thing I wanted to talk about is, if you're going to play with a shotgun, you really should be playing incredibly aggressive. There's right here, this guy comes up, and you could see him on the map. You know exactly where he is. You have a grenade up. You could have thrown a grenade up there to pre-nade him. But you wait until the grenade hits you before you finally make a move. And you got the kill, so, kudos. But that could have been a way easier engagement. He got to determine when he was coming out, and you want to put that pressure on him to make him make a mistake. So here you see some guys, you're just kind of scoping out this area. That's fine. You might hang out for just a little bit too long before you move. But it was nothing that was too bad. How this guy didn't kill you, I don't know, but that was a pretty funny little engagement. And then right here you have the best ring around the rosy I think I've ever seen. You see this guy down here, he goes under the arch, you chase him, which chasing is very dangerous from that particular position. Instead of going under the arch after him, I would have jumped up over the arch. That would have helped you be at a more unpredictable place for him, and you would have met him at the top of the arch with your shotgun out, and it would have probably paid out a little bit better, or a little bit easier. As it worked out, it was fine, but if that guy had just waited around the arch for you, you would have had a bad time. So this is near the end of the match now. You hear a Stormcaller. Again, you're just kind of doing your big floofy jump, letting off of that jump and using your burst could have gotten you further away faster, and it might have ended up working out for you. But, you never know. Stormcallers move really fast. If he's using Blink, there's no way you were going to get away from him. So, right here, you could have done a little bit better moving cover to cover. You're just kind of standing out in the middle, and that leaves you a sitting duck for if they get a good angle on you. There's just 10 angles there that they could have gotten on you. It's a good pre-nade. It's a great position. I don't know if you're actually going for hitting the top of the tree, but it was actually an awesome position to do it. So when you see a Blade Dancer right there and you have Stormcaller up, I would have used Stormcaller. I would have just popped the Stormcaller, killed that Blade Dancer, and moved on. But again, it all ends up panning out. You get a good cleanup there at the end. So it was a great match. You had an awesome KD on this match. Really great use of supers, especially. But now we're going to go ahead and break it down and give you your 3 things. So, your top 3 things. This was a great match, but one thing that I can easily tell you that you should do, you need to work on your movement. Strafing for sure is something that you need to work on, just making sure that you're always moving left and right. Cover to cover movement, sprinting whenever it's on cooldown, Warlock skating. And if you don't know how to Warlock skate, I highly suggest looking up some videos on Warlock skating to learn how to do it. It's not very hard. It's a lot easier than Titan skating, and it does help move around the map a lot faster. And just removing the general floofiness from your jumping when you don't need it. And then the big one is kind of like Tiger, you just need to incorporate sliding into your gameplay more. It keeps you off of that even, head level, so that people have to actually work at trying to get a hit in on you. I think the loadout you're using is actually pretty good. You might try a slower firing pulse rifle like a Hawksaw or a Scout and see if it fits your loadout a little better, just because it gives you that little bit of extra range. the fast firing pulses are awesome, but their effectiveness definitely drops off at like that mid-long range into long range. I noticed that your long range game, while you did get kills at that range, it took a lot of bursts. And so it's just something to think about. Maybe you can find something that you like even better to run with your shotgun. Also, I couldn't tell what exotic armor you were running, but I definitely suggest the Claws of Ahamkara, the Ophidian Aspect, or the Ram. All three of those are amazing on Stormcaller, so just think about your exotic usage and see if you can use something that'll really benefit your subclass. And then the last thing is just learn to run away, and when you should run away and when you should stay and fight, and when you should push more aggressively. There are a lot of fights that you stayed in that maybe you shouldn't have, and there were a lot of moments where a solid push would have thrown off the people you were playing against. So just make sure you're playing to your loadout. And that's that. So thank you, Kaloth, for submitting, and I really appreciated it, and I thought that you had a really great gameplay, and so now we're going to move on to doing J-dubs. How we doing, chat? Oh, good. Looks like you were able to stay for the whole thing. Huzzah! So this is very much just as an FYI. This whole format, the way I'm doing this stuff, it's all very much trial and error. So anything that I'm doing really well, I definitely appreciate the feedback. Anything that feels like it sucks, or I'm not doing a good job, or being too critical, or any feedback you have, make sure that you pass it along to me. I do not mind, and I appreciate it. So all right, let's move on and watch J-dubs. So J-dubs was a control on Sector 618, which I feel like this is one of those maps that steamrolls really fast. Like either if somebody starts getting a really big advantage, it's very hard to come back from, just because of the design of the map. So let's take a look. So one of the things I'm going to say right up front is that I'm always going to be really biased when I'm watching people's Titan footage, because one of the things that people need to learn to do is Titan skate. You got to be moving. Titans are so fast, and you need to take advantage of that speed. Hopefully you're already using better control jump, but the next thing is learning how to do a Titan skate. Because one of the things that you're going to see right here at the beginning is that you jump up real high. You do a lot of really high lofty jumps, and lofty jumps are terrible for Titans. Because you're just so exposed, and there's nothing you can do about it once you get up there if you're not running a Twilight Garrison. And so, here you're running Armamentarium with pulse grenades. We'll talk about the pulse grenades later. I think you utilize them actually pretty well, but in this instance, you're up against two guys. You throw the pulse down to zone them out a little bit, but then you push back into that same spot. You would have, I think, had a better time trying to loop around the backside. It would have been better. Like at one point you see that there's now 3 guys there, and it's now 1v3, and you're still pushing up to try to challenge them. Like when you're in that sort of situation, you need to reposition, and you need to try to find a different way that you can lock it down to where you can only see like one person. You do end up getting a kill with that pulse grenade, but something that I wanted to mention about your grenades is that in this situation, you see these 3 guys. So this guy runs in. If you were using lightning grenades, you could have put a grenade, if you can see, you can't see my mouse, but on this paneled wall over here, you could have thrown a grenade on this paneled wall on the right-hand side, and you would have almost guaranteed at least 1 kill with that grenade, because it does 122 damage in a giant cone, 4 hits of it, and then he wouldn't have had time to react to it. Instead, you use a pulse, and you get a tag with it right off the bat, but he gets out of the way, And eventually he'll walk back into it because he doesn't know how long it's going to last. But right here at this point, you should have ran. I mean, you've got you can see 3 people on your radar. And in that situation, when you're this low of health, what odds do you have of beating 3 guys with that much health? So just make sure that you're being smart when you're engaging and when you're disengaging. So you push back up into that, and I mean, he threw an Axion behind you. You were kind of screwed, but a good back pedal may have gotten you out of that situation. So one thing to keep in mind, never stand still. You always want to be, you always want to be dancing, and not actually literal emote dancing, but like just always moving around. You never know when a crouching guardian is going to just like jump out of nowhere. And you could throw their aim off even just a little bit, and that could save your life. When you're in a gunfight, same thing. You need to be doing that left-right movement. It's one of the things that's actually great about auto rifles. Auto rifles are the easiest thing in the world to actually get strafing going, because you've already got a lock on their head, and you don't have to keep pulling the trigger to keep that lock. So right here you see you just kind of stand on the point and move around. You really should just be dancing this whole time, just moving around. Don't ever stop moving your feet. This is a thing that you'll notice throughout all of this footage is when you do pull out a shotgun, you're not very aggressive with it. And that's the thing with shotguns. Shotguns should be aggressive. When you pull it out, you should immediately be sprinting, sliding towards the people, like take a shot and follow it up with a melee immediately. Again, you're using your gear pretty well at the moment, but like that's one part of your kit. If you're gonna run a shotgun, use it like a shotgun. Really get in there. If you want a close range thing like that can also do the same thing, maybe try a sidearm or a fusion rifle. You don't have to be you can be a little more passive with those. So you're using your grenades actually really well. It's interesting because I haven't seen pulses used well in so long. This is one thing I wanted to talk about just a little bit. This is another great example of where would have been smart to disengage. You see the one guy, he shoots a tether. Already you should be backing up because you don't know whether that tether is going to hit you or not. You should be trying to avoid it. And luckily he had quiver on, so it didn't even grab you with a tether. But from that distance, a black hole would have grabbed you. So once it hits, I would have already been backpedaling, but you say, all right, I'm going to engage. Then you see that second guy come up, and at that point, you were doomed. Like, even if you got one kill, you were going to die to the second guy. So definitely make sure that you're paying attention to when you should stick around and when you should run. One thing that is interesting here is that your loadout in general leaves you pretty vulnerable at range. So any long sight line like what we just looked at is going to be a bad place to stay and hold your ground. Somewhere in here, this is great. As long as they're not in that back area here, you're in a good distance for your auto rifle or for your shotgun. So, make sure that you're always trying to engage from the proper distance. Also, whenever you see special ammo is up, always grab it. Don't leave it sitting there. Even if you're, no matter what, if you're grabbing it, you're stopping the other team from grabbing special ammo. So it's always a good idea to grab special ammo. It's a great smash. You get the double down on it. There's another guy you can see coming in behind you, and he gets cleaned up by a shotgun, so that works out great. So, in general, again, here, you want to make sure you're moving. You want to make sure you're shaking. You're seeing stuff going on. This is a bad sight line to stand in because there's not, you have nowhere to go while you're moving, and you have no ranged weapon to protect yourself as you're crossing through that. So that is a bad path to take with this loadout, just always. Following this guy's a smart plan. You get your orbs. That guy just got a really great three shot. Hey, Double. Welcome to the stream. We're looking at J-Dub's footage right now. So here comes Heavy, and this is an interesting little Heavy here because in the middle of your Heavy, you're going to get hit by a Warlock using Purifier Robes. And one of the things here that you're going to notice is he pops up, and then you have a very unfortunate accident. When this happens, I mean, you're going to die no matter what. So your best bet would have been just jump straight up, aim down, and shoot your thing. Like, who cares? You're not going to get away. He can see you perfectly fine. So the best you could have done would have been to take him down with you by getting him a direct hit with your Galahorn. It's easy to say that after the fact, because in the moment you're just like, whoa, somebody's actually using Purifier Robes? What the hell? So I totally get that. But, you know, one thing I want to compliment you on, like, your auto rifle aim from, like, a super long distance is actually just on point. It's really good. I can tell that you've used the hatchet a lot, and that the hatchet is, you know, really good to you. So good work with that. So right here, you have really good patience in this part here. You've got two shotgunners at the point, and I think I would have thrown that grenade just a little bit deeper. Instead of trying to cut them off, I would have tried to put some damage on them instead. But yeah, we'll just watch it here. So you got the one shotgunner, you got him, and then the other one's back there. You see he has a shotgun, so it would have been better if you could have put that just a little bit deeper to try to keep him off the point. But he ends up getting cleaned up, and you didn't rush, so you didn't feed him kills. So one thing here is you have a really great sense of map rotation. Like, you're moving around the map well, but you need to stay light on your feet. You feel a little plotty. Like, it's a lot of just kind of walking, slow sprinting. Like, a lot of this is going to come when you start using more of your movement abilities like Titan Skating. But a lot of it just feels like you're kind of tentative to move or to keep your finger on the movement stick, and you just want to constantly be moving. You want that constant sense of movement. You did slide into like get orbs and stuff, but you really want to be just moving that cover to cover, move from one thing to the next, always be near a corner. Don't move out too far into lanes, especially with your loadout. You don't want to move into lanes because what are you going to do about a sniper? Like, the best you can do is throw a grenade and hope that they back off. So for the rest of this match, like, you get a really great smash here. You're just going around capping points. You play the objective really well. You make sure that you're still capping things and doing what you're supposed to. But for the most part, you know, your gameplay is pretty solid. A lot of it's movement based, and honestly, that's great. You are aiming just a little low most of the time with your gun, but for the most part, your gunplay is actually, doing pretty well. A lot of it is just you need to get your movement to be as good as your kind of general gunplay. So in this instance, you see a hammer coming, just run. There is nothing you were going to do to that hammer to stop him. You did end up putting some damage on him that allowed them to clean him up, but I mean, running away would have been a better tactic in that moment. You guys were up by enough that just not feeding them points would have been better. So yeah, it was again another great gameplay. I'm pretty sure you had a pretty good KD on this one. Got a 1.71, and a big thing about what we're going to talk about in your top three is just stuff to make it so that you have a 1.71 with more kills on the board. And so that you can maybe even make that KD higher. So again, these are your top three. So number one, work on movement. Titan skating is so key. I don't think people realize how fast you can move with a Titan until they really see it and they do it themselves, and they realize, oh my god, this is so fast. That is so key to being successful with a Titan in PvP, and like really learning how to move and how to stay away from the high flying jumping. There's, as Raz has said before, there's nothing more terrifying than a Titan that is just flying at 200 miles an hour straight towards you. And speaking of a Titan flying straight towards you, I think your loadout leaves you pretty vulnerable at range. Personally, I love auto rifles, and if you wanted something that was similar in feel but maybe a little more competitive at range, you could try a fast firing pulse that has full auto on it, or a full auto distance star. Those I particularly like the full auto distance stars. They have an incredibly nice time to kill if you can stay on the head, which we know you can. I mean, I just watched that gameplay where you used a Hakon's hatchet and stayed on people's heads, and it's easier to stay on their head with a distant star. And so, you get that almost like Suros regime feel of like cock, 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 and four shots will kill if you get them in the head. Another option is just get a lot more aggressive. Part of that is just starting to move faster, but just be aggressive and move in and just fucking go for it. You could try using Juggernaut or Shoulder Charge and just haul ass around the map. Just move. Use your shotgun. And with that, you just never want to stay in long sight lines. You can close the gaps quickly. But honestly, your playstyle to me feels more passive. You didn't take a lot of aggressive plays on that last one, so maybe you even switch up your loadout to be a little more passive and see if it doesn't work out a little bit better for you. Make sure you have the right weapon out at the right range. If you're pushing, get out your shotgun. If you're staying back and baiting, keep your auto rifle out. You really only used your primary and your grenades. You really didn't melee. You didn't use your shotgun but like once or twice. And if shotguns are uncomfortable to you, maybe there's a secondary out there that would work a little bit better for your more passive playstyle. Another thing to think about is, I love Striker as much as the next guy, but you might try Sunbreaker. Sunbreaker is a way more passive class, both in its super and in its grenades. All of its grenades are passive grenades. Well, two of them are. Fusion grenades aren't very passive. But it doesn't require you to have an in-your-face mentality. Like, you don't have to be like, oh my god, right in their face with a shotgun, where that's kind of the strength of a Striker. Sidearms, double. Sidearms are another good choice for being passive as well. You can pull them out very quickly as people come in close. The only problem with using a sidearm, if you want to just keep using an auto rifle, it could be harder for him to utilize sidearms effectively, because he's still going to have that weakness at range. Hold square over Titan at character selection screen. No, Titans are the best. Another thing, if you want to stick to Striker especially, really think about learning the Garrison, the Twilight Garrison. I'm really biased towards it, but it makes you faster and it makes you very hard to hit. And both of those things are just really powerful. So the second thing there, the second point that I was getting at is really think about your loadout. Think about why you use the things you use, and then think about how you can tune your playstyle towards your loadout, or how you can tune your loadout towards your playstyle. You can do it either way. You just have to decide which way you want to be. And your third thing is you need to speed up your decision making. Don't let your brain get in the way. Make a choice and see what happens. it's the same thing that I just said on the last one. You basically just need to just make a decision and go for it. Gut reaction. It very well could lower your KD a bit, but as you do it more and more, your gut reactions are going to be better. Your muscle memory will get better, and you will just see a market improvement over time. That you're able to make those decisions faster and get better results out of it. Hey, Jex, welcome. You just came in at the very end of it. So that is gonna do it, guys. That is all of the Zen moments that we have for tonight. I am going to go ahead and put this up on YouTube so that you can go back, and the guys that I did it for tonight can go back and watch it. I would love to immediately jump into Destiny and start doing Iron Banner, but I gotta go get my kids some dinner and myself some dinner. So I'm gonna run and do that, and then I'm gonna get on for just a couple of matches probably and call it a night. So I appreciate everybody that came out and watched, and I'll be back in probably like 30-ish minutes, 30 to 45, and I will get a party started. So remember, especially you guys that watched, anybody that watches it on YouTube, this is still a very new thing. I'm still figuring out exactly how this should run. And I'm looking for any feedback that you've got, anything that I did well or did poorly, just let me know, and hopefully we can get it sorted out, as we go. Hopefully they get better as we go. So I'm going to wrap up episode 2. Again, thanks y'all for coming, and I'll be back in 30 to 45 minutes with Destiny.